All right, welcome back, Bears fans. Bear down. And today I wanted to take a little different approach from where the media and Twitter and everything is spinning right now, with only focused on Justin Fields and Caleb Williams and everything else that's crazy rumor central, because that's going to dissolve itself here in the next week. And I wanted to actually focus on the actual combine. So every day I'm a super obsessed fan. So when I say I'm a Bears enthusiast, that's saying it lightly, because I seriously devour too many hours every single day on understanding this team, understanding the culture, understanding the players, understanding what's going on in different processes of the season and the off season. And so I'm processing article after article. I'm looking at every source, even if they're junk sources that I don't agree with and always have a super biased opinion. I read through all of them. And I came across one today, and I'm going to reference it in the description of this video so you can go read it. If you can click on it and read it if you want, because I want to give him full credit. Greg Gabriel, he's a former scout for the Bears. I'll give a little more take on him, but this is the title of it: A Scout's Take on What's Real or Not at the NFL Combine. And it's put out by Windy City Gridiron, so I just want to give them full credit for it. And for anyone who doesn't know who Greg Gabriel is, basically from the 2000s to mid-2010s, he was a big part of the Bears scouting process. So he's a former scout, personal director for the Bears through most of the early century. He's had several friends around the league, likely connections within Hallis Hall Steel. And while he's not usually the one for breaking news, it's always worth hearing when he has something to say. So I always perk up when I see something from him. Not usually my breaking news source, but he usually has some kind of insight or feel with that many years in scouting. So when I saw this article, it's not biased. It's not about Justin Fields or Caleb Williams or anything like that. It's really just a take on the combine, which is what we're hitting right now. And I found it really interesting, so go read it. But I'm going to give you the highlights of it real quick here, because that's what we're hitting right now is the combine and all these exciting players we might be drafting. And this is where the preseason kicks off. This is really where it begins right here. The thing he doesn't mention in there is the combine is really where all these GMs and people are getting together to discuss possible trade scenarios and things that are happening. People are rubbing shoulders. So this is really where the preseason kicks off. And then after this, we're going to have free agency kickoff. You're going to see the big signings, and the Bears have really big opportunity with $80 million in cap space there. And then we get into the draft. So it all starts right here, though, at the NFL Combine that's already taken place and going underway. And before I get into the final part of his article, I'm going to give you some really cliff notes of his article. I'm going to be quoting him a lot, so if you really want to just check the article out, it's really good. But as for how the combine goes, this is the official schedule of it. And you can see it's broken out into different categories so they can all, take part and take place and have time to go through each different positional group. First, we start with the defensive linemen, the linebackers, then the defensive backs and the tight ends, then the running backs, quarterbacks, and the wide receivers, then the offensive linemen and the special teams and the kickers. And so they'll rotate through. It already started. I mean, you can count Sunday if you want to. It doesn't really count. That's just when people were arriving early. But then each one rotates, and on their first day, they have registration, pre-exam, orientation, and team interviews. On the second day, general medical exam, pre-ordered studies, team interviews. Third day, ortho exams, media interviews, NFL Player Association meetings, team interviews. Day 4, measurements, on-the-field workouts, which is what gets the most publicity. So you see the most on that. But then day 5, bench press, broadcast interviews, and their departure. And you can see it rotates. So right now, if you look at that there, we're on Wednesday. So the defensive linemen and the linebackers, they've already had their medical exams, their pre-ordered studies. They're into their ortho exams today, their media interviews, which is what you're starting to see a lot of. You're seeing all that stuff come out. NFL Player Association meetings and their team interviews. And the defensive backs and tight ends are starting those things yesterday, and now they're in their general medical exams, pre-ordered studies, team interviews. And then the running backs, quarterbacks, and wideouts right now, you see their pre-exams, the NFL Players Association meeting, team interviews, and the offensive line are registering. So you see a lot of that stuff. You get bits and pieces because Marvin Harrison Jr. arrived, and you saw Twitter go crazy about him arriving, and you see Caleb Williams interviewed with the Bears and team interview, and he's interviewing tonight with them. And so, all these things get a lot of hoopla, but here's the schedule for that. And it's not really crazy that you hear one thing or another, because the Bears are going to interview with, dozens and dozens of players, especially with 2 top 9 picks. But this is kind of the layout of how that works. All right, so to his article, he said every year he reads articles about how players will raise their stock with a great workout. And the truth is there's maybe less than a handful and usually none who actually raise their stock. He explains that raising stock is the media's way of creating drama for the event. And boy, have we seen that this year. The media likes to twist and crave things around and just make them. I mean, even with what Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus are saying, there's 15 different ways that you can make different things. So my caution, my advice right now is take your own approach and don't follow the media through this, because it will be a roller coaster. And I've been on Twitter more than I should be, and I've been trying to explain that look, we've been seeing these things for a month coming. We've been talking about them. We've even said teams or analysts will say that the Bears are now trading the number one, and that still means that they're going to draft a quarterback. It's all a bunch of hoopla in my mind right now. You really have to filter it all out and know what you already have studied, realized about all this time right now, what Ryan Poles' nature is, what he and Matt Eberflus have already said, what Kevin Warren has said, and take it to the bank for how your gut feels about it. Because I've had several people message me. I've had different people on Twitter say, oh, my mind's changing. We go through this every year. It doesn't change. There's always this crazy speculation, and especially with the Bears being with the number one overall pick the last 2 years, it's extra crazy for Bears fans, especially with the situation with Justin Fields. There's so many things I could say that relate to my confidence literally being at 100% that we're keeping Justin Fields. Guys, I'm not ashamed to come off of that. Like, I am so firm that this is what we're doing. It doesn't matter what the media is doing right now, because I hear all the stuff and then I look into it and I see the reality of it. There's always 15 sides to every story when you're looking at this time of year. So it will get crazy. Okay, so Greg Gabriel, man, I can't talk today, has said that the most important event at the Combine has always been the medical. That is the main reason the Combine came about. It's become a very inexpensive way for a large number of players to get the most thorough medical of their lives in the same time. He says that it's the media and us that puts too much emphasis on all the workouts and all that stuff, because the realistic grades entering Indy and comparing to them what they actually get drafted, you'll see little change from the actual teams. The exception is the players from the NFL clubs that they always had a grade high, but we don't see that. So we see our draft boards, but the teams have their own draft boards, and they don't always see it the same way we're seeing it. And it's us that are changing, but the teams really keep theirs pretty consistent because they have their own. They have a whole team of scouts. I think everyone knows that at this point, but it's not just a couple. I mean, it's a whole team of scouts. And so this is a fun article to look at, because he talks about when something like this happens, we start to hear the phrase that so-and-so, this prospect is rising the draft boards, when in reality, the only board that they were rising up was the analysts who don't have a clue, and they've proven that what they're talking about. I mean, we've done that with several people out here already. I did one of my first videos on Darius Robinson. He's gone from the 5th round all the way up to the 2nd round now. Jackson Powers Johnson was a 3rd rounder. We were talking about him before, and now he's all the way up into the 1st round. We're changing our draft order. You see Xavier Legette going up and down. These teams already have theirs, and they've been looking at these things for months. They know where these players land for them, and these things aren't changing dramatically. They're not rushing in and out of the Combine like frantic, crazy people like, oh no, this changed. They've got a very firm, realistic view of where they are, which is why Ryan Poles already knows what he's doing for the most part. Yeah, they have to sit down as a team and analyze and compare and do everything they're going to do, but it doesn't mean they don't have a clear picture of what they're doing. So I want to make that really clear. This is not some crazy, frantic thing for teams. They've got a clear picture. They've been working on this for a long time. Okay, so he said the first thing is the medical. That's primarily the biggest one. I mean, that is huge for teams. They want to make sure the investment they're making is in someone that is not going to have some kind of letdown like that. And I mentioned that before in one of my videos. I didn't understand why Bryce Ford Wheaton fell so far. It was an undrafted free agent. There might have been something in his medical. He got injured right off the bat with the Giants in the preseason. He could still be great. Was there something in his medical? I don't know, because I saw him going as a 4th, 5th rounder in my books, but he wasn't drafted. Then he got injured. Now, he could still be a great player, and the Giants could have a steal, but they got him as an undrafted free agent because someone didn't want to put investment capital into him. The next most important thing were the interviews. In many cases, he says it is the first time outside of the All-Star games that clubs get an opportunity to talk to the players. 20 minutes is not a long time, and a team isn't going to draft a guy based on the interview, but they sure can decide not to draft a player based on how the interview went. And you see this in the The all too famous movie Draft Day that we talk about too much, about Brian Drew and the $100 bill on the back, and they sent out the stuff beforehand, and Bo Cunningham got called out because he lied about not having the money, but Brian Drew mailed the money back. Anyways, that's just a stupid example, but it's based on something. They want to have a clear picture and attitude of this player. They want to see their honesty. And so he says the results of the interview can have an effect on which player a club brings in, and for the allowed 30 player visits, because each team gets a 30 player visit where they invite them into Hallis Hall. So after the Indy interview, the club feels they need to spend more time with the player. They can easily bring them into their facility for the visit. They can also go to their school, the pro day. They can spend more time because they might get interested because of this interview. So the interview is very important along with the medical. Okay, other important thoughts that he had before you just go check it out yourself, because this is the Cliff Notes. His thoughts on skipping the combine workout. He said a player's not required to take part in the workout phase of the combine, but they're encouraged to. He recounts how he told several players that it's always wise to work out in Indy, with the reason being if he has a less than satisfactory workout, he has a chance to do a makeup workout at their own pro day, and the teams are always going to use the best results, not strictly the combine results. He said if a player has a less than expected workout at Indy, he has the second workout day. Conversely, if he skips the Indy workout, he has a bad day at his pro day, he has no chance to make it up, and that his feelings are to always give you the best chance to succeed in front of evaluators. That teams are going to take the best results. They're not going to harbor the bad day against them because they just want to see that elite level of play. So he said a perfect example of that was with Devin Hester. By Devin's standards, he ran poorly at Indy. At the Combine, he ran high 4.4s on his 40, which is a slow time. He then decided to run at the Miami Pro Day about 10 days later, and on that day he ran a 4.35, which was kind of play speed he showed on tape. So if he had not run at the Miami Pro Day and only done the Combine, the Bears may not have drafted him, especially back then when the Bears were very focused on that, just like the Raiders, on that speed. And well, I guess we still are with some of the picks we've taken lately, so I hope we kind of get away with that. But I digress. He might not have got drafted by the Bears. We might not have had that Hall of Famer if he didn't do both days. And so then he focuses on what drills are important for each group. Different drills are more important than others. Obviously, with skill groups like wide receivers, defensive backs, running backs, and tight ends, the 40 time carries a lot more weight. And so each position group has different skill positions that are important for them to weigh in factor. And they really want to see guys that jump off the page. But these aren't the most important things. Like you said, the medical and the interview are really the more important things because they've been evaluating their tape for months and months and months. So with receivers, he always places important on the jumps and agility drills. The jumps indicate the player's explosiveness. The agility drill tests his body control and ability to come out of a cut. With defensive tackles, the 10-yard time can be more important than the 40. Obviously, that burst in speed coming off the line. The jumps, again, show how explosive he is. The defensive ends, he puts emphasis on both the 10 and the 40, as well as the jumps and abilities. An edge player has to be explosive and flexible to be able to stay low and to show bend coming off the edge. So this is just a basic overview. So his last thoughts, though, were the combine workout for the quarterbacks. And in his opinion, the quarterback throwing sessions at the combine are the least important drill done, and teams don't care one bit whatsoever if quarterbacks don't throw there. It just isn't up. It's not set up for the players to perform well there. He has no chance to get into any type of rhythm. At the combine, a quarterback waits in line, makes 2 or 3 throws to receivers he's never seen before, and then waits 5 or 6 minutes before his next chance to throw again. He calls it absolutely ridiculous. So teams don't put much weight on the quarterbacks there. We put a ton of weight on that. This is why you see a lot of the top quarterbacks in the draft opting out year after year. People make way too much out of everything when the reality is it's just not beneficial, and there's more important reasons for the combine. When an agent holds out a quarterback, or when a quarterback sits out from that, he doesn't think the clubs hold anything against the player because he knows that the players are going to have their own pro day and a private workout where they're going to get into a better rhythm and better timing and have a better opportunity to show who they really are and see how that compares to the tape anyways. So I thought it was a really interesting article. I really enjoyed it quite a bit. I think you guys might enjoy it too. But even if you don't want to check it out, here's the cliff notes of it, and it gives you a good feel for what the combine is really for, what teams are looking for there. It's going to be a place, number one, for GMs to mix and mingle for our situation, at least, for the Bears, to be able to trade that number one pick. But then with the players we're actually going to draft, we're going to be able to they have their boards together. They're going to be able to put those medicals down. They're going to put the interviews to the players, see if they're a good fit character-wise, leadership-wise, if they fit the culture. And just like the Bears have talked about, they go in there, they have dart throwing or putt-putt. And you've already heard about a couple players come out and say, I'm trying to remember. I think it was Liatu. Latu has already said he doesn't like golf, so he went in there and he's like, I'm going to throw darts, but I was very focused when they wanted me to hit a bullseye. I was showing my competitiveness. So the Bears have their way of going about it. Every team has their way going about it, but that's what they want to see, is they want to see the medicals and the interviews. So it's going to be fun to see how this all shakes out. We don't get to see the behind-the-scenes stuff, and that's why we don't really know the insider stuff, but we're going to see it all come to fruition when we start seeing the trade picked, and we start seeing the moves that Poles makes, and then we see free agency hit at the beginning of just a couple weeks from now. 2 weeks from now is when free agency hits. So we're going to see all this stuff coming together. So it's an exciting time to be a Bears fan. Hope you got something out of this. It's fun for me to see the outside scope of what's really important right here and kind of filter away that muff and that noise of everything that's going on with social media and with all these analysts thinking they know everything. And I know some of you guys say, I think I know everything too. Nobody knows. To be honest, nobody knows. So it's kind of fun to see a scout's take on how it works at the Combine. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit the like button. And until next time, bear down.